Have you ever felt drained after a conversation? Not just tired but diminished, as if someone siphoned away a piece of your inner light. That hollow ache isn't imagination. It's the footprint of a psychic vampire. One who feeds not on blood but on the unspoken sacrifices of your psyche. Carl Jung mapped these predators with chilling precision, revealing how certain requests aren't mere asks but slow-motion soul theft. When people demand these 5 specific things, they're not seeking help. They're conducting an occult transaction where your energy becomes their currency. You know the feeling. That coworker who just needs to vent, yet leaves you carrying their emotional poison. The lover who begs for complete honesty, only to weaponize your vulnerabilities. These aren't normal human exchanges. They're Trojan horses smuggling chaos into your inner sanctum. Jung saw what most miss. The most dangerous people rarely attack outright. Instead, they hand you a shovel and ask you to dig your own grave, all while calling it love or friendship. This is why ancient myths spoke of demons who steal names and shadows. Because the oldest predators understand true power lies in what you willingly surrender. In our age of blurred boundaries, these 5 requests have evolved perfect camouflage. They wear the face of connection, the mask of need, but their endgame remains unchanged. The colonization of your psyche. The first step to armor your soul isn't learning to say no. It's recognizing the asks that aren't asks at all, but spiritual ambushes. Beneath the surface of ordinary human interaction runs an invisible economy of psychic energy. A black market where attention, emotion, and vital life force are traded without consent. Jung understood that the most predatory transactions often come disguised as reasonable requests, seemingly innocent appeals that mask a deeper hunger to consume rather than connect. These 5 categories of demands form a sinister taxonomy, each a different method of extracting your essence while leaving you convinced you gave it freely. The first is the request for endless nourishment. Those who demand you become their perpetual emotional caretaker, their unpaid therapist, their 24/7 well of validation. Like a tree forced to bear fruit out of season, you wither under the weight of their bottomless need. Jung recognized this as a form of projection, where another's unhealed wounds become your burden to carry. The second is the demand for perfect understanding. The subtle ultimatum that you must anticipate their needs without being taught, read their mind without clues, and fill their gaps without acknowledgement. This is the hallmark of the uninitiated soul, one who mistakes love for telepathy and relationships for magical rescue. Then comes the invitation to self-betrayal, the pressure to abandon your boundaries, your truth, or your dignity to prove your loyalty. These requests often wear the mask of compromise, but their true function is erosion, like ocean waves patiently dissolving a cliff face. The fourth is the appeal to your unhealed wounds. Those who instinctively target your tender spots, not to help you heal, but to keep you bleeding. They recognize your childhood abandonment fears, your need to be seen, your hunger for approval, and they weaponize these vulnerabilities under the guise of connection. Finally, there is the most insidious of all, the request that you become smaller. Not said outright, but implied through 1,000 subtle corrections. Laugh less, dream quieter, need nothing. This is spiritual murder by 1,000 cuts. The slow extinguishing of your inner flame so another can feel warm. Jung saw these dynamics as modern recastings of ancient sacrificial rites. Only now, the altar is your psyche and the knife is disguised as love. Mythology whispers to us across centuries about these 5 predatory patterns, dressing them in the robes of gods and monsters so we might recognize their faces when they come knocking in modern guise. Consider the Greek legend of Prometheus, who brought fire to humanity only to have his liver eternally devoured by an eagle. A perfect allegory for those who demand endless nourishment. Like Zeus's vengeful bird, these souls return daily to feast on your vitality, convinced their hunger justifies your suffering. The fire you shared in goodwill becomes the very thing that burns you, as all givers eventually discover when their generosity turns into obligation. The demand for perfect understanding finds its mirror in the Arthurian myth of the Holy Grail, that elusive chalice which could only be seen by the purest knight. How many relationships have crumbled under the weight of this impossible standard? where one partner becomes the quester, expected to magically perceive needs never spoken, to heal wounds never revealed. The Grail legend reveals the tragic truth. When we make others responsible for our wholeness, we doom them to fail, for no human can be another's divine vessel. Self-betrayal wears the face of Odysseus's sirens, those beautiful voices that lured sailors to dash themselves upon rocks. Today's sirens don't sing of oceanic wonders but whisper more insidious promises. If you just compromise this one principle, overlook this one cruelty, surrender this one dream, then you'll be loved. The mechanism remains unchanged across millennia. The slow trading of selfhood for the illusion of security. Each small surrender making the next inevitable until the original self is unrecognizable. Those who appeal to unhealed wounds reenact the Egyptian myth of Set dismembering Osiris. Not killing outright but breaking into pieces, ensuring the damage lingers. They don't create new wounds. They simply keep old ones fresh and bleeding. Knowing a fractured psyche is easier to control. And the request that you become smaller? That is the witch's house from fairy tales, where children are fattened not for slaughter but for gradual diminishment. Their voices growing fainter with each loaf of poisoned bread until they forget they ever wanted to sing. The moment these 5 predatory patterns are recognized is the moment alchemy begins, where leaden interactions transform into golden discernment. Practical protection starts not with confrontation but with perception. Developing what the Kabbalists called ayin tova, the good eye that sees intentions beneath words. When faced with the request for endless nourishment, the initiate learns to distinguish compassion from cannibalism, offering water to the thirsty while refusing to become the well. This is not selfishness but sacred geometry, maintaining the proper proportions between give and take that prevent relationships from collapsing into black holes of need. Modern workplaces provide the perfect crucible to practice resisting the demand for perfect understanding. The colleague who expects mind reading reveals himself through passive-aggressive sighs and vague complaints of disappointment. Here, the warrior of boundaries employs what medieval knights called determinatio, the art of making one's psychological borders visible without apology. A simple "I want to understand you better. Please tell me directly what you need" becomes both shield and sword, exposing the unreasonable expectation while offering a healthier path forward. For the invitation to self-betrayal, ancient Persian merchants developed a practice we might adapt. They would pause 3 breaths before any agreement, checking for the visceral body no that whispers beneath social compliance. Today's equivalent might be the 24-hour rule for all significant requests, creating space between pressure and response where true alignment can emerge. Those who appeal to unhealed wounds meet with what Buddhist psychology calls selective vulnerability, the wisdom to share from strength rather than weakness, offering stories of past pain only when the recipient has earned the right to hold them. As for the most insidious demand, the request that you become smaller, we find guidance in an unexpected place: the physics of superconductors. These remarkable materials achieve frictionless energy flow not by shrinking but by vibrating at frequencies that repel interference. So too with human personality. True protection comes not from contraction but from finding one's resonant frequency so clearly that diminishing requests simply cannot land. The fully expressed self creates its own force field. What begins as a warning about others transforms into a revelation about self. These 5 forbidden requests are ultimately mirrors showing where we still leak power, where our yes comes too easily and our no sticks in our throat. Jung's insight was never about building walls but about developing discernment, the kind that lets love in while keeping predation out. The path forward demands neither aggression nor withdrawal but what the alchemists called separatio, the sacred art of distinguishing gold from dross in human connections. Each time you recognize one of these 5 patterns and choose differently, you perform an act of psychic alchemy more potent than any spell. For the ultimate protection isn't avoiding predators but becoming the kind of soul they cannot recognize as prey. Not by hardening but by shining so brightly their hunger turns to awe.